She came home late in the evening. I heard the lock click and immediately felt a strange tension in the air. She walked in with a smile, the same one I hadn't seen in a long time. It was like sudden sunshine after a week of rain. I didn't know whether to feel happy or wary. "Hi," she said, taking off her coat. There was a lightness in her voice, as if a weight had been lifted from her soul. "I joined a women's interest club." "A club?" I froze for a second. I looked at her, trying to understand where this news came from. She hadn't mentioned it before. Usually we discuss her plans, share news. She wouldn't have gone there without telling me beforehand. I felt something sliding inside me like an icy drop down my spine. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" I asked, trying to hide my anxiety behind a calm tone. She shrugged as if it didn't matter at all. "I just decided to give it a try. I wanted a distraction. I thought it would be good to socialize with other women. You know, self-development." She spoke so confidently and easily that for a moment I felt like a fool. Maybe I was just overthinking? Maybe I should be happy for her? But something inside wouldn't let go. That smile. I hadn't seen it in so long. Where did it suddenly come from? A pendant on her neck caught my attention, a small golden charm with the club's emblem. She had never worn it before. I couldn't take my eyes off it. It seemed foreign, like a symbol of something new and unfamiliar. "You look happy," I said quietly. She smiled again, but her gaze was distant, as if her thoughts were somewhere far away. I felt a cold grip on my heart. Too many inconsistencies. Why didn't I know anything? Why did she suddenly decide to change her usual routine? And why did her smile no longer belong to me? A week passed. She still comes home with that same strange smile on her face. She says the club is the best thing that's happened to her lately. I see her enthusiasm, hear her talking about new acquaintances, about personal growth workshops. Her eyes shine like they used to when we first started dating. Every evening, I catch myself thinking that maybe I'm exaggerating. Shouldn't I be happy for her? She finally found something that brings her joy. Maybe I'm just jealous of her new interests? Inside, a mix of hope and doubt grows. But something still bothers me. She's been looking at her phone more often, smiling at short messages. When I asked what made her so happy, she just smirked. "The girls from the club. We're coming up with a theme for the next meeting." Her voice sounded serene, but for some reason I felt my insides tighten. I told myself it was nothing. It's just a women's club. I should support her hobby and not obsess over small things. I made a promise to myself to stop searching for hidden meanings in her words and actions. If she's happy, I should be happy for her too. But somewhere deep inside, a lingering anxiety still smoldered. Why does it feel like I'm starting to lose her? Last night, she was late again. I made dinner as usual. The candles on the table had already gone cold and the clock showed 10 o'clock. She wasn't there. I dialed her number, no answer. Sent a message, silence. My heart pounded wildly as I paced around the room, trying to calm the trembling in my hands. Finally, at 10:30, the door swung open. She walked in as if nothing had happened and headed straight for the shower. I stood in the hallway staring at her coat, not daring to ask where she had been. Everything seemed too calm, but that calm only made me more anxious. When she came out of the bathroom, I gathered my courage. "Where were you so late?" She didn't even look at me as she pulled on her pajamas. "We stayed late at the club, discussing plans for the next meeting. Until 10:30, my voice quivered. She raised an eyebrow as if surprised by my tone. "Yes. Such heated discussions." I lost track of time. Something didn't add up. I had seen the club schedule, the meetings end at 9. I knew that, but I didn't say it out loud. Inside, pain squeezed me tight. I didn't want to believe the worst. Maybe I just made a mistake? Maybe they really did decide to stay longer? Trying to convince myself that everything was fine, I looked at the pendant on her neck. It sparkled in the lamplight like a mockery of my doubts. I averted my gaze to hide my unease. But deep down, I already had a feeling that this pendant was more than just a club symbol. It had become something else. I wanted to ask again, to press, to demand the truth, but something held me back. Fear of hearing the answer? Or maybe the fear of admitting that I was no longer the most important person in her life. I just whispered, "All right, I'm glad you had a good time." She nodded without even noticing my confusion. She lay down to sleep, hugging her pillow as if nothing had happened. I lay next to her, feeling the cold fear spreading throughout my body. Why do I feel like she's lying? Everything has changed. I started noticing how she goes out more and more often in the evenings. Club, she repeats every time, as if that word alone can erase all my doubts. I try to be supportive, smile back, but inside it's like a thin, icy needle drilling into me. Recently, she announced that the club was having an out-of-town meeting on Saturday all day. I was surprised they never met on weekends before. New format, she said in passing without explaining. Are you sure? I tried to catch even a hint of uncertainty in her voice. Yes, she replied briefly and turned away. I stood in the kitchen with a cup of coffee in my hands, not even noticing its bitterness. Why do I feel like I'm becoming a stranger in her life? She seems to be slipping through my fingers like sand. Recently, I found her old bracelet under the couch, the one she used to wear every day. I clenched it in my hand as if it could bring back the version of her I once knew. In the evenings, when she comes home, we barely talk. Her gaze is distant, as if her mind is still there, among those new people at the meetings that inspire her so much. I try to ask, how was the meeting? Good, she replies, without going into detail. The pendant on her neck has become a constant. She doesn't take it off even at home, as if afraid of losing that symbol of her new life. I try to cope with my jealousy, but I can't get rid of the feeling that it no longer belongs to us, but to them. I seek support from friends, but they just laugh. Relax. It's just a women's club, it's harmless. She's just found a new hobby. But why then do I feel such emptiness inside? I look at the photos on the shelf, smiles, happiness, our trips. Now, these pictures seem like memories from someone else's life. Why is she distancing herself? Am I just overthinking? But why does the pendant around her neck seem foreign to me, just like her new world? I don't recognize her anymore. Those rare moments when we're alone turn into painful silence. She looks at her phone and smiles faintly, not noticing I'm there. I try to convince myself it's all in my head, she's just passionate about the club and new acquaintances. But my heart sinks, as if drowned in cold water. Recently, I've started noticing small things. A new lipstick in the bathroom, a deep red, though she always preferred softer shades. The perfume has changed to something sharper and more vibrant, as if she wants to impress someone. I tried hinting, but she waved it off. Just felt like changing things up. Every Saturday, she leaves for these out-of-town meetings. I know the club is in the neighboring district, so why does she come back smelling like a stranger's cologne? One evening, I pretended to be asleep on the couch when she returned. She quietly walked into the bedroom without trying to wake me. Lying in the dark, I caught a scent, subtle but clearly not hers. I began tracking her schedule. It's no longer just suspicions, it's an obsession that won't let me rest. I started searching her things, checking pockets, but only found a receipt from a cafe on the other side of town. Why was she there if the club meeting was in another district? Recently, I found a pass in her bag with a man's name on it. A cardboard badge with a stranger's name, but for some reason it felt important. I wanted to ask her directly but couldn't. What if I'm wrong? What if she's just helping someone from the club? I put the pass back, trying to calm myself, but my hands were trembling. All evening I kept catching her gaze, but she avoided looking at me. At one point, I couldn't hold it back. Who is this man? I blurted out. She froze, then burst out laughing as if I had said something ridiculous. What are you talking about? It's just a pass for an event. I was helping with the organization. She turned away as if the conversation was over. But inside, I was tearing apart with doubt. Am I really losing my mind? Or is the truth not where I'm looking for it? I can't take this anymore. I can't pretend that everything is fine while my insides are screaming. I decided today I will find out the truth. She got ready for the club meeting again. Fastened her coat tightly at the waist, adjusted the pendant. Her lips bore that same deep red color. I asked what time she'd be back. Don't wait up, she said over her shoulder. As soon as the door closed, I grabbed my jacket and followed her. My heart was pounding and my hands were sweaty. I kept a distance, hiding behind corners. She didn't look back even once. She confidently crossed the road and turned towards the park. I knew that path, it didn't lead to the club. I stopped in the shadow of a tree when I saw her pause at the parking lot. A minute later, a car pulled up, a black SUV. I froze, paralyzed, unable to believe what I was seeing. A man got out of the car, and she threw her arms around his neck. I felt the ground slip from under my feet. The man pulled her close, and I heard their laughter. I couldn't make myself move closer. I stood, clutching the tree trunk as if it were my only anchor in this chaos. She laughed again, and he ran his hand through her hair. Then they got in the car and drove off. I didn't know where they were going. One thought kept pulsing in my head. It's true. She had been lying all this time. The club was just a cover. I remained standing there, unable to move. The cold evening air cut into my lungs, but I didn't feel the pain. When I finally managed to move, I headed home. My legs carried me on their own as if my body existed separately from my consciousness. One image kept flashing before my eyes, her in the arms of another man. Her laughter echoed in my ears. I wanted to scream, but my throat tightened so much that not a single sound came out. How am I supposed to look her in the eyes now? How can I live with this truth? I didn't close my eyes all night. My thoughts fluttered like wounded birds, not giving me any peace. It felt like my heart was pounding so loudly it should have woken her up. But she slept soundly, turned away from me as if nothing had happened. At dawn, when the first rays broke through the blinds, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed her phone from the nightstand, trying not to make a noise. My hands trembled and I almost dropped it. The password, her birth date. I unlocked it, holding my breath. Messages. A group chat from the club, nothing suspicious. But I knew it was just the surface. I opened her private conversations. Scrolling up and down, I suddenly stumbled upon a name I recognized immediately, the man from the car. My fingers froze on the screen. The messages were warm, almost tender. He wrote about missing her smile, how he couldn't wait for their next meeting. She replied briefly but with the same warmth. A wave of heat washed over me. My chest felt like a nail had been driven into it. I kept reading as if hypnotized. They were discussing a trip out of town this weekend. I recalled her words, an off-site club meeting. Foolish, painfully foolish. How could I believe it? Through tears, I read his last message. You're the best thing that's happened to me lately. She replied. I feel the same. The phone slipped from my hands and landed on the floor with a dull thud. I didn't have time to pick it up. She woke up, turned toward me, squinting sleepily. What are you doing? Her voice sounded wary. I couldn't respond. I just swallowed the bitterness in my throat. She saw the phone on the floor and immediately understood. Her face turned pale, her lips trembled. You were going through my phone? I tried to say something, but the words wouldn't form. I just breathed out. Why? She didn't answer. Just looked at me, fear mixed with anger in her eyes. She reached for the phone, but I clenched it in my hand as if this piece of plastic was the last proof of my shattered world. Are you cheating on me? The question came out hoarse, as if squeezed from the depths of despair. She averted her gaze, fingers clutching the edge of the blanket. I knew the answer even if she didn't say it aloud. The silence was deafening. At that moment, I realized we had nothing left to say to each other. After that morning, everything changed. She no longer tried to explain, didn't make excuses. We lived in the same apartment, but as if on different planets. I couldn't make myself speak to her. I couldn't even look her way without feeling everything inside collapsing. In the kitchen, she put the kettle on, but the sound of boiling water couldn't drown out the silence hanging over us. I sat at the table, staring at the cup of cold coffee. The pendant on her neck, the same one with the club emblem, now seemed less a symbol of passion and more a mark of betrayal worn with pride. Are you going to say something? She asked quietly, not turning around. I stayed silent. If I started talking, I would end up screaming. Yesterday, I broke a glass when I realized I couldn't get rid of her scent on the pillow. It no longer felt familiar. I tried washing the pillowcase, but the smell remained foreign, piercing. She sighed as if tired of my silence. We need to talk. About what? My voice sounded hollow, like dried out. About us. About what comes next. Next? I don't know. I can't imagine life after this. Her face showed mixed emotions, guilt, fatigue, irritation. I couldn't tell whether she was trying to justify herself or me. I didn't want it to end up like this, she said, sitting across from me. Didn't want to? I echoed, feeling a surge of heat inside. Why? Why did you do it? She turned away as if my words burned. I just felt lost. I wanted to feel something new. My mouth went dry. How could you get lost in something we had built together for so many years? How could you replace our us with something new? I didn't know what to say. Anger and pain mixed, tearing my chest apart. She placed the pendant on the table in front of me. I didn't want to lie to you. I was just scared to admit it. I looked at the pendant, a symbol of everything that once seemed important to her. It lay there, lifeless, just like our relationship. And now? I asked, barely holding my voice. Do you want to go to him? She remained silent, and I understood. Her silence was the answer. The one I didn't want to hear. A few days passed. She's still here, but her presence feels like a shadow of what it used to be. We live side by side, but between us is a chasm that cannot be crossed. I watch her when she thinks I'm not looking. Her gaze is empty. I'm trying to understand. Is it guilt? Remorse? Or just regret that her plan was uncovered? I can't shake the feeling that it's all my fault. Maybe I became too predictable for her? Or not attentive enough? Scenes from the past keep spinning in my head. How we walked along the embankment, how we laughed together at silly little things. When did it all become so cold? I look for comfort in her old photos. She smiles at me from the phone screen, hugs me, laughs. That laugh used to feel so genuine. I trace my finger over the screen as if I could bring her back to who she used to be. Foolish. All of that is in the past. Today, I went into our bedroom and suddenly noticed her things were fewer. An empty spot on the hanger where her favorite coat used to be. The jewelry box on the shelf was gone. Only the pendant remained. I found it in the trash, covered in dust and forgotten. I picked it up and my heart sank. It used to mean so much to her, and now it's just garbage. I no longer try to talk to her. Pride won't let me. But my thoughts won't let go. What if she's waiting for me to stop her? To say, let's try to fix it? I catch myself mentally saying those words, but I can't voice them. Every time she walks by, I breathe in her scent to see if she smells like another's perfume. But everything is mixed up, her scent, my fear, the bitterness of loss. I don't know how to move on when everything I loved turned out to be an illusion. Why didn't I notice it earlier? Maybe I was blinded by routine? Or just didn't want to see the truth? I still want her back, the one I used to know. But is it even possible now that the shadow of betrayal has torn us apart? Today, she approached me first. Sat across from me, her head down. I stayed silent, feeling a wave of irritation build inside. She nervously picked at the edge of her sleeve, a familiar gesture when she feels uneasy. I found an apartment, she said quietly, not lifting her eyes. I'm moving out next week. The world seemed to freeze. I had imagined this moment many times, yet I still wasn't prepared. I wanted to shout, accuse her of betrayal. But my throat was dry and the words got stuck somewhere in my chest. Are you sure about this? I forced out, struggling to keep my voice steady. She nodded and I noticed her eyes welling up with tears. I don't want to hurt you. It's for the best. I smirked, though inside I felt hollow. For the best? For whom? For me? She covered her face with her hands and I heard her sob. I should have felt relief, anger, something, but there was only emptiness. As if everything I once loved had dissolved into thin air. I looked at the pendant still lying on the table. Worn out, dull, it no longer shone like before. The symbol of freedom and independence had become a reminder of a shattered life. I picked it up, clenched it in my hand, but felt nothing. Did you ever regret it? I asked, almost whispering. She lowered her hands and looked at me as if she wanted to say yes, but remained silent. I knew there would be no answer. No justifications, no confession of guilt. She had already left me mentally and now she was leaving physically too. I watched her walk to the door without trying to stop her. When she left, the silence settled so heavily I couldn't breathe. I stood in the middle of the room, clutching the pendant, now just a reminder of how easily everything that seemed unbreakable can be lost. I don't know what will happen next. But I've realized one thing, I no longer want to bring back the past. It left with her. I opened my hand and the pendant fell to the floor with a dull thud. Let it stay there, a symbol of what can't be reclaimed. Now I have to learn how to live again, without her, without the hope of restoring what once was ours. And even if the pain will haunt me for a long time, I know I will get through it. Because deep inside, a quiet certainty has begun to grow. Someday I will find myself again.